Hello and welcome to another episode of SoFly. Very excited to be recording another episode. Interesting couple guests we've had in the last round. We've got a new guest for you today. Very excited, and of course, before we get into that, we've got myself, Mitch. We've got Idis,
Howdy.
and that's it. Aldo's out east. He's fishing and having fun, actually hanging out with Kate and Scotty. And Yilma is I think he's hanging out with his nephew or something.
Yeah, it sounds
Anyways.
made up to me.
I don't know.
I don't buy it.
I don't know what's going on with Yama, but rock and roll. It's myself and Idis here today. And like I said, we've got a guest on the show we're very excited about. Brendan Toner was born in Guelph, Ontario, but moved to Calgary at the age of 5. His older brother Seamus got him into fly fishing and tying. Brendan considers Seamus to be the best fly tyer he's ever met. These days, Brendan has the most fun dry fly fishing on the Bow River in the evening. At times, it can be quite difficult, which for Brendan makes it more exciting and rewarding. He's also totally into saltwater fishing and wishes he could do it more often. Tell me about it, brother. When it comes to fly tying, Brendan is incredible. He focuses on tying patterns for Atlantic salmon, although he's only gotten to chase them a few times for now. He's been invited to be a featured tyer at the Classic Atlantic Salmon Fly Tying Invitational next year, which is in Calgary. And when he's not chasing fish or tying remarkable flies, he's a plumbing instructor at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. But today, he's on SoFly. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much for having me, you guys. I appreciate it.
Very excited, man. I think it's been a long time coming. You know, you're a great angler. You're a great tyer. So we're super excited to get to chat about it all.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from my fly tying room, or my little fishing room I got down here in my basement in my house. I don't know, that's pretty much dedicated to all of that for sure. You know,
it looks like it. I love it. It looks like a wicked setup. You've got like 1,000 reels behind you.
Yeah, that's a collection of everything that Reddington's given me over the last few years, for sure.
I love it.
We've been with them for a while, so great team.
Man. Yeah, well, they are. That's very true, and that's actually how we got to meet a little bit too. I know obviously Idis, you fished with Amber last fall, was it? Out in Rochester?
It's about November last year, yeah.
So everybody's kind of connected, and obviously the fly fishing world is big but small. Everybody kind of knows everybody, and I know, Brandon, your names come up all the time, like many times when talking about fly tying and all that stuff. So we're excited to chat about all of the fly tying more than anything. But I definitely want to just start this whole thing by talking about how you got into fly fishing and how it all kicked off. I know you mentioned your brother introduced you to it. Now, was that in Ontario, or was that in Alberta?
No, that was here in Alberta. So we moved out here when we were pretty young, and my brother was into fishing. He had fished a little bit when he was in Ontario, and then him and my dad kind of looked into it here. I think what happened is he saw someone fly fishing on the Bow River, and he was like, "Dad, I want to do that," right? And they both signed up for a fly fishing and fly tying course at that point. I think my brother was about 12 years old at the time, which would have made me, 7 at that time. Yeah. And they got right into it after that, man. Like, he was obsessed. And of course, whatever your older brother wants to do, you want to do the exact same thing, right? So there's 5 of us. There's 5 kids in the family. There's 4 boys, and I have a younger. My sister is the youngest of the bunch. So actually, all of us fly fish, man. So we're super, super into it.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was like after that, if he fished, I was like, I want to go with him. I want to go with him wherever he wanted to go, right? And then
that's cool.
He was tying downstairs in the house all the time, so I was always down there bugging him, teach me how to do this, Seamus, teach me how to do that, right?
It's interesting. It's like you guys got just kind of as a family got into fly fishing when you moved to Alberta. Like, that was it. You just that looks cool, and then it just everybody was like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was. It was super cool, man, and it was great. Obviously, back then there weren't as many people, around fly fishing, right? So, I was a big skateboarder at the time too, right? So it was kind of a more skateboarding focused than fly fishing at that point, right? Yeah. Until I got into, my late teens, early 20s, right?
Yeah, totally.
Obviously, fly fishing wasn't like the coolest thing to do when you're a kid. So.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first fish on the fly rod?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was with my brother Seamus. The funny thing is I would go with him all the time, and I wouldn't catch anything. He would
Yeah.
catch fish all day, every day, and it's because I didn't listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then when I finally was like, I'm gonna listen to him, he's like, Brendan, this is what you're gonna use. We're gonna go today. We're gonna go get fish. And I caught my first one, and then I think I caught 12, 13 fish after that
Oh, nice.
throughout the day, you know,
Yeah.
which was insane. You know, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, amazing how you can actually do something properly when you listen to someone who knows what they're talking about, right?
Oh, for real. Yeah.
Yeah, it made a big difference, man. It was a good moment for sure.
That's good. Yeah, that's what was it about fly fishing that like had you know you and your brother hooked? Like, what was it about the sport that interested you guys?
Well, I think I don't know. It was we're so close, right? We're so close to the river, and we spent so much of our time as kids in Fish Creek Park, which just runs along the Bow River here in Calgary. If I wasn't fishing, me and my younger brother were down there riding our bikes and everything, right? So I think just the whole outside aspect, man, and being outdoors and having that so close to where we were is just an easy escape for us to go down there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So you guys got into fly fishing out west. I guess like you know, something to talk about would be how did you then get into fly tying? Did that start young too, or was that later in life?
Yeah, I learned pretty much all the basic techniques. I didn't even realize that until I started tying later on, right? Just by sitting there and watching my brother tie, and he's like, here, this is how you palmer this on, or how you wrap hackle, or how you put dubbing on the fly. And I had done that stuff with him as a little kid. You know, when he wasn't there, I would sneak down into his room and try and tie some stuff myself.
Yeah.
But I never really took it seriously until I got into my early 20s. And then when I started doing it, I was like, holy shit, man. I know how to do a lot of this stuff, right? Like I didn't realize, you know, that I knew how to do it, but I did. I just kind of remembered everything that he had taught me from when I was a kid. And then, you know, again, I was like, flies are expensive. I was like, oh, I'll just get into fly tying. It's cheaper, you know? Bullshit.
Save some cash.
Yeah, bullshit. Yeah. It's worse, man. It's worse. It costs way more. So, yeah, and it's just the whole, like, doing it on your own. I think initially for me, it was, I want to catch fish on my flies, man. The ones that I tied. That was the big draw into it when I first started, right? And then, you know, and then of course I just moved in. I did this kind of fly tying and this kind of fly tying and this kind of fly tying. And I wanted to do all of them. Yeah, I was pretty obsessed.
When did like the classic salmon pattern start getting tied? That's a big part of your tying now, right? Is
huge,
the classic
man.
patterns.
That's really all that I do anymore. I don't focus really on any other stuff unless I'm teaching someone how to do it, or I need a couple things for fishing the bow or going out into the mountains for most part. But it was about 5 or 6 years ago when I really started getting into it. And I had been really interested in it from the very start. You know, I remember like researching stuff and being like, holy shit, that's incredible. Like, look at those flies. It's amazing. And then it scared me. It scared me for years. I was like, I kind of had an idea of what the cost was to get into that kind of stuff, and how expensive and how difficult that kind of stuff can be to obtain. So I really shied away from it for a long time. And I almost wanted to learn how to tie everything else first before I got into that.
Why? Why is that?
There's so much technique involved, and it's just the aspect of like being perfect. They have to be perfect. You put so much time involved. And I didn't realize actually how long they actually took until I tied my first one. Yeah. It took me a month and a half to tie
your first one.
Took my time my first Atlantic salmon fly. Yeah.
How long does it take you now? Like, do you whip through them, or is it more?
Oh, no way. No. Sometimes if I'm having a good few days, I can get one done in 2 to 3 days. You know, there's guys out there who finish them in a day or in a few hours and stuff. I'm just like not at that level, but sometimes they sit on my desk for weeks. and I
Yeah.
come and do a little bit here, then a little bit there, and a little bit here. And like,
It's kind
best
of a nice way to
advice,
tie.
it's great, man. Best advice I ever got was for these anyways, was if it's not working perfectly that day, stop.
Mm.
Right.
Leave,
Yeah.
come back the next day and do it the next day when your head's clear.
The way you describe it, it's almost like a painting a painting, you know? Like
Very
that's how
much
you
so.
would approach that, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah. Like they got to be perfect, you know.
Yeah.
To me, that's, you know, and that's important. That it's like, I have a difficult time a lot of times showing them
Right.
to people or posting a picture on them or anything, right? Because I can see sometimes like an imperfection, you know,
Right.
like
Right.
something's wrong there, and people are like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Right. It's such a subtle thing.
It's good, and I'm like, "No, it's not good. I can't post that. You know, I can't. You know." So I'm my own worst critic for sure.
Well,
which
you know,
I guess is a good thing.
that's a good thing. I think that's you know, I think that's a good thing. I think you could find Brendan's flies on Instagram at the Dubbing Loop. You've got some really beautiful flies, man. I mean, so that
Thanks.
first one, you know, like you mentioned, you wanted to do all the other fly tying before you did this because you wanted to kind of like master, get good at least all of the other tying, and then you would take this leap tying that first one. Like, what was that experience like? Because I know with these flies, a lot goes into the prep and the planning and stuff like that too, right?
For
Materials.
sure. Absolutely. So just to tie the first one, just for like to get an idea, like to get the material for the first one took me 2 years to gather everything and to find where to get everything and to research and do all that kind of stuff. And it's a good community, that fly tying community, but at the same time, you know, they're tough. They don't want to like, oh, here,
give secrets and stuff.
I'll give you this, man, you know, or show you this, right? You kind of have to pay your dues a bit. So after that couple years of getting everything and finally getting to that point, I first started tying. I was scared shitless, man, when I did it. Yeah. The body, I was okay with doing the body at that point, you know, but when I got to the wing, like a married wing, the first time, I was like, I thought I was going to have a heart attack when I tried to put it on the first time. I was so scared.
Because it could all just splay out, right? And just break. And
it could just be a disaster, man. A disaster. And it went on okay. And then I stared at it for a couple days. And then I took it off. And then I redid the wing. And then I put it on. And then I took it off. And then I redid the wing. And then I think the next 10, 15 flies I did after that, I was a wreck. I was super nervous and super scared. I was like, I put so much time into getting this material and all this money into getting it, you know, and I was like, I don't want to wreck it or do any of this stuff. And it's just, you just got to get to that point where you're confident with it, you know, and you just got to trust what you're doing and you got to get past it, you know. So, but yeah, the first one was, I have it.
Yeah, you have it?
Oh, yeah. I got it in the frame, man. I was like, I'm going to frame it. I'm going to put it in the frame and everything. And it's a good reminder to me. I can go back and look at it and be like, well, you did that wrong and you did that wrong and you could have done this better. And so to me, it's monumental to me, man. Like, it's like my first one, you know, it was an important step for me, right?
Was it in what you call perfect? Was it perfect in your eyes?
Oh God, no. Far from. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was when I was done. And now that I've done so many, I go back and look at it and I'm like, oh man, it's far from perfect for sure, right? Yeah. You know, the proportions are off. Everything's kind of, I thought it was right, but it wasn't right, man. Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I feel like I have some of my flies I've tied when I was like a kid that I was like, wow, that's really good. And I have it now and I look at it and I'm like, that is like wildly bad. You know? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, it's not something that exists in nature.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So I feel you. I can feel you there. It's interesting you say like you want it to be perfect. What is perfect? Like what is a perfect Atlantic salmon fly?
Proportions are essential. Everything's got to be spaced out. You measure the fly all the time. mark the fly. Everything's got to be marked. Everything's got to be smooth. The silk's got to be smooth. The tail
Right.
has to, the tag, the tail, everything has to be set properly. And it should be flat.
Yeah.
Like when you
Flat.
turn it on its side, it should be,
Right.
it should look perfect, exactly the same on both sides,
Yeah.
right? There's so many aspects that come into it where you think you're like, I've really got it. This is good. This is good. This is good. This is a tiny bit off. It's not
Yeah.
good. Or this, the tail's too long. You know, the topping is too long, right? There's not enough there. The feather's not prepped properly. Preparation is just a huge, huge, huge part of that.
Well, it comes down to like millimeters, right? Like I'm looking at some of your flies on your Instagram, and it's just like it's not even a millimeter, and it's like it's off a bit, you know. Like when you're thinking about perfection, I suppose.
Absolutely, and like I said, like I measure, like I get, you know, tape measures and rulers and everything out, and measure it and mark everything. I actually draw pictures of them.
Yeah.
And then lay them down on top of the picture, the diagram.
That's
to
a
make
good
sure
idea.
that all the proportions are proper.
Yeah,
right?
that's smart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, it helps out lots, man. Yeah.
Okay, before we get too far into fly tying, it's interesting because you grew up in Alberta, skateboarding, probably skateboarding culture is a little like rules and things like that, and like being proper and stuff. It's not really skate culture, and now you're tying like Atlantic salmon patterns that are like crazy rules and like super orderly. It's funny like how you got into that kind of path. What is it about like classic patterns that made you go, I want to do that?
It's the artistic thing that is about it, and that has a lot to do with skateboarding. I always felt too. I always treated fly fishing like that as well. I was like, I'm like everything I had done in skateboarding and stuff, and I was in magazines and stuff and did interviews and all that kind of shit when I was in skateboarding too, right? And I was like, I can take that, because you just get to the point where you just, for me anyways, skateboarders hate hearing this, man. Where I was tired of beating up my body, they're always like, well, once you're a skateboarder, you're always a skateboarder. But it's like, no, I'm done now. I got to the point where I was like, I'm done. So I just wanted to take that artistic side of it and kind of focus it on something else. And fishing, there's just so many different aspects, so many different casts, so many different ways of doing it. I felt like it was just such an easy transfer from one to the other, right?
Yeah.
And then, I loved it, and I'd fly fish forever. A big part was like when we got on with Reddington and we started hanging out with those. And the first time we met up with our team, I was like, man, these guys are like, this is like being on a skate team. Like, that's what that felt like to me with that crew. And I had, my brothers with some companies, and I was like, do you get that vibe like when you're with those companies? He's like, no, I don't. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's just me, that thing. So I just was like, it's almost like I went from the skate community over into the fly fishing community, and it was just such an easy transfer for me.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? Like,
kind of weird, when you think about it, because I felt the same way, especially like you say, like on the Reddington team, because Reddington's kind of done this really cool thing where they've brought a lot of us kind of like-minded people, I think with similar sensibilities and like personalities together. And it's like, oh yeah, we kind of all fly fish, but we don't come from like what you'd expect fly fishing to be.
Exactly.
And it's so weird that that's happened,
Totally. Yeah, it is, man.
It's cool as hell.
Yeah, it's great, man. And I just, there's just, I don't know, man. So much to fly fishing. There's so much to it. It's just so much. It's so similar, man. Just without kicking the shit out of myself at the same time.
Totally. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first fly, back to the salmon patterns. The first pattern you tied, what was the pattern? Was it just like your made up thing, or?
Oh no, it was a green Highlander.
Always follow a green Highlander. Okay.
Yeah, it was the first one. It was the one that drew me in from the very start. Yeah. Just those colors and everything, and I was like, that's the one I'm gonna tie, which is not necessarily the first one that you should tie. That's for sure. It's like jumping right into the deep end, man, right off the bat, right? Like it's like
It's a tough one, I would think.
yeah. You know, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going for it. Like I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna go as hard as I can, and I'm gonna go for it, man, right off the bat, right? Yeah. Yeah.
What is a good like first Atlantic salmon?
Yeah,
fly
that's a good
to
question.
tie if somebody
Where do you dip in your toe?
Like you should start off with like maybe some wet flies or just some easy, you know, Mary wing trout flies, like and stuff like that, and try to do that kind of stuff first. And I had done that. I actually, before they did the classics, I did spays, right? Spay flies, which just helped me learn how to place mallard wings and stuff like that and proportion the body properly, right? And so that was a good start for me. And then if you're getting into like classic patterns, like Rangers, Durham Rangers and stuff like that, right? Yeah. You know, which is a very popular pattern, right? But it's not a married wing, but it helps
That's why it's a bit.
Learn proportions, right? And do all that stuff and placements and everything like that, right? So that's where I should have gone, which is exactly where I did go after I tied the Highlander.
You're like, Durham Ranger time.
Back to the Rangers. Let's go. Let's do those ones and start from there and see how everything works out after that point, man. Yeah.
Well, you know, to your point, like it is like the Durham Ranger, like the proportions and everything. It does look tricky, you know.
And surprisingly enough, it was. And I was like, shit, man, I should have started here. That was would have been the best way to go, right?
Yeah.
And then work my way up from there, you know. So my main focus now is, I still tie all different ones as well, but I'm trying to complete a series from John Popkin Traherne, which is a series of 28 classic salmon flies that he did. And the reason I like his so much is because they're so different than what everyone else did. And on my Instagram, the majority of the ones I post are from him, right?
Okay.
That he had done. And they're, to me, there's nothing like them. They're the most beautiful colors and everything, right? So that was a big thing for me.
What was his name again? Sorry,
John Popkin Traherne. A major John Popkin Traherne. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was his sort of story? So he was like, I need to learn more about this classic salmon fly stuff. I mean, like it's so crazy how deep it is. Like,
absolutely. Well, they're all guys from the UK, man. You know, I'm sure they were all very wealthy at the time. You know, because to get all that stuff and to access all that kind of stuff, you would have definitely needed a lot of money.
There's some pretty wild, like exotic materials, right?
Oh, big
super
time.
Crazy, man. Yeah, like it gets out of hand for sure. Yeah.
Well, we've all heard the breaking into the museum to steal a bird feather off of like a toucan or something.
the feather thief, man. That book for sure. And
that was a good
funny.
one.
People are like, why would anyone do that? And I was like, you don't get it, man. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it. You know.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't break into any museums, but I get the obsession with it.
Yeah.
Like it keeps me up at night. You know, I can't sleep. Where am I going to get these feathers? How am I going to get them? I don't have the money for them. How am I going to get that money together for them? And it will. I won't sleep. Sometimes I won't sleep for days trying to figure out how I'm going to get them. I understand that obsession with trying to acquire some of that stuff, man. It could be really, really difficult.
It's really so interesting because I feel like there's people out there that wouldn't. A lot of the time, I tell people I fly fish, they're like, "That's stupid. I don't understand." You know, this is like a whole other like level of like passion. What is it about classic Atlantic salmon flies that has you so enthralled?
The difficulty and the perfection, being perfect. It's like I've done it. Like I did it. I've done them all, man. You know, and it's like, again, from the first time I saw them, I was obsessed. I was like, look at those things, man. Like that is
They're beautiful.
You know, and I remember talking to my older brother about it, and he's like, you have no idea, Brent, the difficulty and the time it takes to do stuff like that. So I was like, I'm determined, man. I'm like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. And they're just they're beautiful. You know, I always wanted to like tie something where I could actually put it in a frame or actually look at it. You know, and obviously never fish it. I'll never. Some guys do, man. They fish those.
Yeah, you don't fish yours, eh?
No way. No way. No way. I can't afford that, man. Not way, man. But some guys do, and I'm like, man, you're crazy. You're gonna put that in the water, really? And, yeah, I'm gonna fish that thing, man.
To put that much work into something, I mean, there's something to be said about it, because it's pretty cool to have the fly like that touch the water, and actually be taken by a fish is a whole other, like, holy smokes thing. But even to just have to touch the water, I think it's really interesting. But I totally I wouldn't be able to fish it.
No,
there's no way.
Like I have ones that are framed ones, but I have tied ones that when I go Atlantic salmon fishing, I will definitely fish them.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're definitely not the same amount of work that I put into the other ones, but definitely some work, man. Yeah. Yes. I have a whole case dedicated to ones that I was like, if you go, you got to fish at least some of them.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So where do your flies end up? Do you sell your flies? Do you just keep them to frame them? Where do they go?
I'm keeping them all. Every one of them. Yeah, I've given away some to my family. Like, I frame them and give them as presents and stuff like that. But it's kind of my like goal. Like, I just want to tie one of everything. Yeah. And keep them all. But that's pretty much impossible. Almost. Yeah. There's just so many thousands that.
So many patterns.
You couldn't do them all. At least I don't know anyone who's done them all personally, but I want to do as many as I possibly can, and at least have one of each. And so I have cases that I keep them in, that are set aside, and it's
that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's an important thing for sure for me. Yeah.
Which do you have a favorite pattern? Atlantic salmon fly pattern?
Yeah, I'm tying it right now, actually, man. Black dog. Yeah, is my
black dog.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful, beautiful pattern, man. Just cool colors, the red, yellow. With Amherst and the long heron that comes off the bottom and everything. It's beautiful. It's just such
that guy there.
That's the one, man.
That's
beautiful Jonas fly. Anderson's, man. Am I correct, dude?
I don't know. I'm probably.
It absolutely is. I know who he is, man.
Who's sure. That? That's just another tire in the community now, or someone that came before?
Yeah. He lives. I think he might live. I'm not sure. Germany, Austria. He's coming out here next year, man.
Okay, so the community. I mean, this is interesting. Like, you guys kind of know everybody. Everybody knows one another. Everybody chats.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's pretty tight knit, even more than fly fishing.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
Niche of a niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really start to know everyone, and once you kind of get in there, they really start to help you out. Everyone wants to help you out, and you get critiqued all the time, which is a good thing, man. You invite that. You're like, give me it. What could I do better? What am I supposed to do here that I should have done? Or, anything, any constructive criticism is great. Yeah. And they do that, So
once you kind of prove your way in, they'll take you in, and
for sure,
everybody shares info.
Yeah, there's a lot of like newer people who are getting into it lately, and it's been great. The groups have been super good. They're like, come on in, like, what do you need? Cool. We can help you out. And I'm actually helping out a lady who lives in Cochrane, just north of Calgary, right? I'm like, she's just super, super into it. And I'm like trying to steer her in the right direction. This is where you can get hooks. This is where you can get feathers. This is kind of where you can get that kind of stuff, right? So, but that could be tough as well, because now that the more people are kind of getting into it, cost, feathers
is going up.
Prices are insane, man.
Really?
I'm like, holy, you get a lot of stuff on eBay, right. For a lot of this stuff shows up, and it's like tripled, quadrupled in price over the last year, right? So it's becoming more and more harder to obtain. And obviously there's a lot of, these are rare birds. It's not like people can just go out and shoot birds. I got some,
because a lot of these are like old patterns that require this stuff, right? And if you want to do the pattern, you want to do it perfect, you're going to need that feather.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now there is the substitute aspect as well. You can make substitutes and dye feather substitutes and do that kind of stuff, right? But in the end, you're trying to keep it as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really interesting kind of segue where, like, so you're talking about like substitutes and all this stuff, and so where do you kind of see the future of this traditional tying going? It's like we said, like a lot of these birds, you can't get the feathers anymore. You know, you're doing these things, and it's like you see it now with like jungle cock substitutes and all that sort of stuff. So where do you see this going?
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think in the future, it's going to be majority substitutes, man. Like unless you have those feathers or, you know, from a long time ago, there's just going to be nowhere to get them. Man. You're not going to be able to obtain those anywhere. But I know with jungle cock that guys farm them now, right? Yeah. They raise them and breed jungle cock. You could see a huge difference between a bred jungle cock feather and one from the wild. A major color difference.
Right.
I feel
really?
Interesting.
Between the two. Yeah, the wild ones are much more vibrant yellows with some little bit of orange on the tips. And I find that with ones that are bred, they're way lighter. They just don't end up the same. They don't end up
kind of sad. It's like the wild birds are more beautiful, you know.
It's true, and it's tough. And you know, everyone's like, "Oh, it's super hard to get jungle cock, man." No way, dude. Just look, man. Online, you can get that stuff all, and that's because people are breeding it, right? So it is more obtainable now.
Yeah.
But what happens is I find that you know, there's obviously grades of feathers, right? You know, jungle cock, you get grades, you know, A, B, C, A being the highest, then AA, AAA, and then supreme quality, right?
Ooh.
Right.
All right. So guys, I feel are like, oh, this is a AAA, and I've ordered. I'm like, oh, this is a AAA. I'll get it from this guy, and then it gets to my house, and I'm like, oh, it's like an A. You know, that's not what they're saying.
Jeez, I didn't know there was like a grading system. I didn't even know that.
Big time. Yeah, big time. So a supreme would, like, what happens with jungle cock feathers is they crack. So they get lines down the middle. And so supreme, you know, cape would have 0 cracks. Not one single feather cracked, and the color would be incredible. It would be beautiful. And then that's when they can start to get expensive at that point. Yeah, you know.
I guess this might turn into a thing of, like, you know, you have your fishing flies where the synthetics are going to come in more, and the presentation flies and competition type stuff is going to be more traditional patterns with actual feathers and that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be it for sure, man. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if I'm going to frame something, it's got to be all legit ones, you know?
Yeah, right.
No substitutes, no anything. Yeah, it'll be all the actual flies. And with those, the Trehearn flies, the series that I'm tying, those are all no subs in those feathers. That's such a time-consuming one. You know, again, that's 28 flies. I know people who've worked on that series for 10 years trying to do it, you know. So I'm halfway there. It's taken me 5 years.
And then what?
And then, I don't know.
On to the next one.
I'll sell that maybe. I'll
retire.
I'll frame it. That series sells for big money, man. Like I know people who've sold theirs for, you know, close to $10,000 for the 28. Yeah, so who knows, man? You know, maybe it'll just make me want to get rid of it, and then so it gives me the opportunity to do it a second time.
Sure, yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So the Trehearns, like, it's like a challenge in the community, kind of like all to tie it. So if you can do all these flies,
if you could do the whole series, sure. Yeah. It's a big accomplishment, man. Yeah, it is. For me, that's my main focus, man. That's the one I want to do. But those feathers are getting tough to find. A lot of them, man. Yeah, they can be really difficult, man.
Did Trehearn like tie any of the patterns that might be, you know, like the Jock Scott or like something that people would know?
Those are like, that's like Kelson, you know, George M. Kelson or Price Tannant, right? And those guys are kind of the ones who, you know, did those patterns. It's funny, those two have very similar patterns. You know, they have their own versions of each one. You'd have a green Highlander Price Tannant, or you'd have a green Highlander George Kelson, you know, and they're all kind of different. And then Kelson had tied a lot of Traherne patterns as well, and so there was a lot of research done in order to figure out all the 28 patterns that he had done. There's this fly and then this variation, right? So you have to tie both of them. You know what I mean? So I'm quite sure it was Kelson who's first talked about John Popkin Traherne, right?
Okay.
Pretty sure it was, man.
Okay.
And who kind of started cataloging his flies, describing them and what they were and everything like that. So they're just so different. No one tied flies like that. They're just
even just looking at like some of the ones on your Instagram, they're so different looking. Like they're very traditional Atlantic salmon, but like kind of modern in a weird way. You know?
Absolutely, yeah, and all natural. That was a big thing with him. No dyed feathers. So no
dyed feathers.
All the hackles, all the macaw, everything was a natural color. Right.
That's so cool. They're just unbelievably amazing looking flies. Like,
there's nothing
the chatterer is really cool looking. This one's like, I love that.
Oh, the chatterer. Yeah, there's actually like 60 somewhat body feathers in just that body alone.
Wow.
Right?
Oh my god.
Chatter is ridiculous. It's expensive one for sure. So it definitely takes on. And hook selection is a major
part. It's a whole other thing, right?
Oh man, that's they're just as tough to get as the feathers. The hooks.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, because I know some of these you're tying on 7/0 hooks from like Japan. It looks like maybe.
Yeah. That's Yoshihiro. He does his with gold leaf and stuff, and
so cool. Yeah, I've seen those hooks.
They're beautiful, man. Yeah, and they're all handmade. And I tried that. I tried to make hooks there for a while.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, forget it. That's crazy. I was like, man, I'm not gonna have any time to tie.
That's where the buck stops.
So time consuming and
But you'll save money. Make your own hooks. You'll save some money.
Yeah. No way. They're so crazy.
Been through that one.
But those guys who do that, it's incredible, man. It's a real art form, And you could really tell the difference between a handmade hook and like even a vintage hook, that they're just so much more beautiful, man. The hook, the barbs, the hook, the points, the shape, everything about them is just so different.
It's perfect.
Right? Yeah, it is straight perfection, man.
To your point, it is perfect. Like I'm just looking at it, I'm just like, it's just aesthetically perfect. Like everything, it's even and just straight, and it's amazing.
Yeah, they're
really,
beautiful.
really cool.
Those guys are coming. A couple of them are coming to Calgary next year.
Oh, no way.
Oh yeah, I'll be saving money.
For real.
Yeah.
So what is the invitational like? How does that work? Is that like a public thing, or is it like just for people on the list?
No, so it's open to public, and then from what I gather, this is my first one now. There will be they were like, when they sent me the invitation, they're like, would you be willing to do any courses, right, or teach anything, or do seminars and stuff like that? And I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. And so I'm going to do one on material preparation, right? Like on how to prep and everything, get that done on the one day. And then the other days you're just you have a section and you tie, and you talk to people. It's open to the public, and I imagine they'll sell tickets. And then you come in as the public and walk around and get all this information on that kind of stuff. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and it's 80 people. It's 80 people from around the world. That there's only 80, and I can't wait. Like
it's gonna be awesome, dude. Yeah,
a true honor. Like I'm just like floored. And it was funny because when I heard it was coming here, like from Colin, there's only one other person I know in Calgary who ties Atlantics. I think there's maybe another kid who does them too, but I'm not sure. I've never met him, but I know the one guy, and he's running the show, and I'd never met him or anything. I just knew of him. And I complained to Amber. I was like, that fucking show's coming to Calgary, man. And I was like, I wish they would invite me, I'm like, at least to come and see it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's my like arrogance, or my like,
no.
I'm that good, man. I should be there, And I was kind of, and then I kind of let that go, and I was like, no, maybe I don't have any right being there at all. I don't know, But I was like, but it would come back, and I'm like, man, can't believe I haven't heard anything from it. I can't believe I haven't heard anything from it. And then I messaged the guy, and I was like, so what's going on? I was like, I'll just message this fucking guy and see what he says.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you tie Atlantics? And I was like, yeah. And I sent him all these pictures and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, okay, cool, kind of, right? And I was like, all right. And then I didn't hear anything back, really. And I'm like, what the hell's going on, man? Like, why won't you, I live here. I would love to know, and then...
It's not that many people doing Atlantics,
That's it. And I was like, what is going on? And then I was starting to get impatient, and I was like, I'm like, Amber, that's it. I'm messaging this guy back, man. And I was like, what's going on with the show? And he's like, well, I've been waiting to hear from you, Brendan. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? And he's like, well, I sent you an email inviting you to the show like 2 months ago. So for 2 months, man, I was stressing out, man. Like, why haven't they asked me? Or what the hell's going on? And then I was like, oh, you did. And I checked my email. I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll come. I would love to.
I'd love to be there. Thank you.
And I got off the phone with him, and I was like, cartwheels around the house. I was on the phone. Damn, I'm like, hey, he's asking me. No, I didn't even know, man.
That's so funny, man.
That's awesome.
It was really funny, man.
That's hilarious.
Of course, I don't check the email very often, dude. So yeah.
Dude, of course they invited you. Your flies are insanely amazing.
Well, thank you, man.
They're beautiful flies.
It's super cool.
So,
do you know what you're going to tie?
Yeah.
Do you know what you're going to tie for the show? Or is it top secret?
No, it's not top secret. I'm going to work on a couple of the Traherne patterns when I'm there.
Cool.
And that's really what I'm going to focus on, because I think I'm looking for a specific set of feathers. They're from a fairy bluebird. There's tail feathers. There's 8 feathers on each bird.
Yeah.
And they're really, really difficult to obtain. Super hard. So I have this, I'm going to message some guys and see, I know a few guys who have them.
Oh, wow.
And if they can bring them to the show.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm going to work on. Right?
Then you can tie them up. Wow, that's right. The feather trade is just so amazing.
I find this whole feather trade thing really fascinating. It's like, okay, so I just want to ask a question. Feel free, you don't want to. I know this is like a touchy subject in some tying circles, but so what makes it I know that there's a finite amount of feathers that exist in the world, and I know there's import stuff. You can only move things around certain ways. What's the biggest obstacle in finding these feathers for you?
Availability, obviously. They don't come up very often. The big getting them here a lot of times can be very difficult, man.
Because of just you can't import them into Canada, you can't cross.
That's right. Yeah. So borders can be a very tough one. Now we're pretty lenient here in Canada about getting stuff up here, which is awesome. And then there is a lot of tires, in Quebec and New Brunswick and Newfoundland who have that stuff. So shipping that stuff across through Canada is totally fine, right? But it can be difficult to get it up from the States. And you'll see a lot of times when the feathers come available, they'll be to U.S. residents only, right? Right. So that can be a very tough one, right? But honestly, the biggest obstacle for me is cost. Man.
Sure, yeah.
Cost is insane, I'm an instructor. I'm not rich.
Well, and people can charge whatever they want.
Yeah.
You're damn right they can, man. They can
say, this is a AAA, and it's like you said, it ain't.
Yeah. I guess you get to know you get to know the sellers and stuff, and you can if there's a good seller, right? You're not just taking a crapshoot.
You got it, man. I got 2 guys from the States that I mainly buy stuff from, and it took a lot of convincing. With the one. I was like, come on, man, just sell me direct. He sold lots of stuff on eBay and stuff like that. Yeah. And I was like, I think at first he kind of ignored me. He was like, who the is this guy? I'm not selling this guy shit. You can bid on it on eBay if you want. And then I was like, oh, what do you do, man? Like, what do you do for a living? And then he told me, he's like, I do this and that. And then he's like, I own a restaurant. And I was like, oh, my dad was a chef. And as soon as I said that, he's like, what do you need?
That's
and I was like, he's like, oh, okay, we have that common bond, right? And then after that, he's like, okay, well, what do you need, man? I can send you whatever you want.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was like, can I ask you, like, how do you get all that stuff, dude? And he's like, that's what I do, man.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we'll just leave it
Don't
at
ask
that.
questions.
Yeah. We'll leave it
big
at
time.
that. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, like it is interesting. I mean, like, what's one feather that have you ever had a feather that you like searched for ages and ages, and then you were like, you found it, you just like couldn't believe it, and you were totally shocked?
Yeah. Western Tropican or Tropagan, which is one of the ones, the black Argus that I have on my Instagram. It's those black ones with the little white circles.
Oh yeah.
I searched forever for those, man. And I have like another set here at home that to find the one set I have here now is that's the one, man. Yeah, it's a perfect set. And I searched forever for them. And when I got them, I was like, yeah, man. That's it, man. I'm like, I don't even want to touch them. I leave them in the package. And I was like, I don't want to mess with those things anymore, man. And then recently, though, and it's funny because I ask people around all the time, hey, you know anyone who's got macaws? Do you know anyone who owns parrots? And blah, like that. And the guy who lives across the street from me, who's a plumber as well as me, and a fly fisherman, man, who I fish with all the time, came home the one day and he's like, so, went and did this job at this lady's house and she's got 5 macaws now.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I'm like, don't fuck with me now, dude. Like, don't mess with me, man. You better be serious. And he's like, I'm serious, man. And he's like, she said she would give me all these feathers. And I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
Cool. And what do you know, 3 days later, he shows up at my front door with a bin, man, a huge bin of macaw feathers. And he's been back 3 times with 3 bins. I have so many macaw feathers now, which is a big thing, man. Now I can use those to like trade for some other stuff.
Right.
It's so interesting.
Right.
I'm gonna send Mitch some actually. Mitchell in Brunswick, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna send you some macaw.
Yeah.
Really? And I was like, absolutely. I have so much. And I never ever thought that would happen. Like I never was like, I'll never
have a surplus of macaw.
Yeah. This lady's like, you can have as much as you want.
Yeah.
You can come back every few months. I'll save them for you.
Yeah.
And they're yours.
That's awesome.
I get them, clean them, steam them, man, do all that kind of stuff. And
that's so good.
I got them all here, man. It's like, I just losing my mind,
cool.
So, I just put things
crazy,
in people's ears all the time, man. Hey, if you see something like this, man,
let me know.
If you see something like that. I ask my students, man, at school.
Yeah.
Who has birds?
Yeah.
I love that.
I just, one kid in my class, he's from, he came down here from Alaska to go to school. Yeah. And I was like, you guys got salmon up there? I was like, you know anyone who ties salmon flies? And one kid in my class was like, my dad's got this big box from like the 40s of all these like materials and stuff from salmon flies. And I was like,
get in there.
You know who wants them, dude? I was like, if your dad wants to get rid of those things, you let me know, man. Right? So it's just like, again, there's
constant kind of ongoing.
That's the obsession. You just you gotta get out there. You gotta put it in everyone's ear, man. You gotta constantly be looking, constantly watching.
So cool,
man. Or else you'll miss out on it, man.
Yeah, someone will grab it.
You got
it's such an interesting like culture and like history. I think we need to do a show that's just like on the history of Atlantic patterns. There's so much to it, and like even just talking to you in the last 40 minutes, it's like all the tires and which I'm sure a lot of people listening are familiar with, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know this stuff,
Oh, the history's insane. Like, I haven't even, like, dipped into that. As like I read a lot about on it, but I am definitely no expert on the history for sure. And there's guys that you read their articles and listen to them talk about it, and you're like, holy smokes, man. Like, but again, these guys have probably a lot of them have been doing it for 40 years, 50 years.
Right.
They're like true experts.
Dialed.
And I'll get to meet all those people next year, man. And
it's going to be cool.
It's going to
be really cool.
Really awesome, man. Yeah. I'm really excited, man. Yeah.
We got to try to get out. We got to try to come to that, man. I think that'd be super cool.
That'd be cool.
Hell yeah, dude.
Check it out. Maybe
next
SoFly will make its way down.
September 23rd, man. Yeah. 2024. It's going to be awesome, man.
I love it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's so sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've got 5 more questions, Brendan, that we use to kind of like wrap up the show. We ask every guest the same 5 questions. So I'm going to ask him now. I'm really excited for the last one. But before we get to number 5, the first one is, what is your favorite fish and why? If you had to pick a favorite fish, what would it be?
That's a brown. I love brown trout.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I love the way they like bulldog you. I love the way they eat off the surface. It always seems different to me, less aggressive than the rainbow. You know what I mean? Like I love dry fly fishing for brown trout, and they always just seem to like when they're big, they suck that fly in. It's like you don't even just like the fly just kind of disappears, right?
Totally.
So to me, nothing better than a big brown on the fly, man.
Which we didn't even really get to talk about, like where you fish, because the Bow obviously has got some nice brown trout fish in it.
Best, man. For me, that's my favorite place, all the world, man. Yeah. Brown trout, nighttime, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, sipping little dry flies. There's nothing like it, man. For me, man. Nothing like it, dude.
Yeah, nothing beats that. I mean, that sounds pretty dope.
My favorite.
I dig that.
Yeah, my favorite, man.
Well, this next one's interesting lead maybe. If you could fish anywhere in the world right now, assuming you go there, it'll be the best fishing ever, where would you go in the world and why?
I go to the Seychelles, man.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I go to Seychelles. I want a GT, man. That's what I want to get, dude. Absolutely, man. Those things are... And, you can go to Christmas Island and get them there and stuff too, man. But there's just that...
Yeah.
The Seychelles, man. There's just something about it. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
That, and you know what was a big seller for that? That Yeti video, man. That came out.
For real. The flip flops. Yeah.
Like I gotta go, man. When that guy talks, man, he's like the Jeets. They're the bad boys, man. I was like, that's it, man. That's where I want to go most of all, for sure.
I feel you.
Absolutely.
I feel like everybody saw that video, and it just goes to show you, like, man, nice job, Yeti, because like everyone saw that video, and everyone's like, we got to go to the Seychelles, the greatest place on earth.
Insane, insane, man, absolutely.
So cool,
insane.
I dig that. Okay, number 3, Midges Fishes 5 is, what is one of your best or favorite fishing memories of all time? If you had to pick one.
I think like, you know what? The best memory, probably the most important one for me is probably the one you asked me about earlier, man. Was the first time I actually caught fish with my brother. That was like a big moment for me, man. I felt like me and him had shared something that was just like, I don't know. We were different with each other after that, man. You know what I mean? And that was a huge moment for me, man, in my life, and experiencing that with my brother and just gaining that respect for fishing itself, man. That was probably the best memory I've ever had, man, for sure, man.
Yeah.
I got another one though too. I got one more, man.
Let's hear the other one too. Why not?
I
like that. That's nice.
When first time Amber and I went to Hawaii together.
Oh yeah.
And we went bone fishing for those monsters out there, and we went on a boat with this. We went with this guy named Terry Duffield, man, Coach Duff, who's kind of started the whole fly fishing thing in Hawaii, and that guy was fucking crazy, man. Like just like off the hook, like no one I've ever met in my whole life, and I'll never forget going on the boat with him. He made Amber get off the platform. Get off. I'm going to show you this and stuff. And I was like, who the hell is this guy, man? That's a whole nother story in itself, man. But he changed everything for me. And I think he did for Amber as well, on how to really cast and how to really do that stuff properly and watch. And it was life-changing for me, man. That was a life-changing moment for Amber and I, man. And I love Terry, man. He's an amazing person, dude. So,
it's also just a hell of a place to fish too, you know?
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine.
The first one I got there ever, though, I got it on my own. Now, Amber and I went out by ourselves. Yeah. And we DIY'd it and we got them. So that was a
That's great.
big deal. Yeah. We were pretty happy about that for sure.
Fly fishing in paradise, you know? I mean, like,
you got it, man. You got it.
Get better than that.
Absolutely.
You know? I love that. Okay, number 4, Mitchie's Fishies 5 is, why do you fly fish? What do you get out of fly fishing? Why do you keep going back out?
My best thing for me for fly is the challenge, man. I like it, man. I like late season fly fishing, man. Later in the season and trying to get them on the fly. I love fishing and I love catching fish, of course, like anyone, you know. You always hear that a lot. Oh, I just like being outside and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Bullshit. You like, of course you do. I love being outside too. I love that whole point of it, man. But you want to catch fish, man. You know?
Yeah.
That's the real main point of going fishing, man. Let's catch some fish, man. But I like when fishing is hard. When they're picky and they don't want to eat something and you have to switch a lot and figure it out and put the right cast in, man. To me, that's fly fishing, man. You know what I mean? It's like not when they're eating all day, every single day. When that thing comes up to your fly and he snubs it, that fish snubs your fly, you know, and you're like, wicked. That to me is like, that was awesome. Now I want to get it even more, you know, like, so it's the challenge, man. You know, and adapting to the situation and changing flies and trying to figure out different fishing, different techniques, depending on where you are. Yeah, that's the big thing.
I mean, that definitely is fly fishing, you know, like the challenge of it and picking it apart and finally catching a fish on it and cracking the code, you know, like really tricking and fooling a fish. Like, I feel you.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
I love that. Okay, number 5, Mitch's Fishies 5. The last question is, what fly pattern represents you best and why? If you were a fly, what would you be?
I'd probably be a leech, man. You know?
Oh, come on. Yeah. I love that. Ty's like the most beautiful Atlantic salmon fly. Knows all these crazy patterns.
That's a leech.
Be a leech.
I'd be
no specific pattern.
I'd be the marabou leech, man, because you can do it anywhere, man. You can use that thing anywhere and you can catch any fish that you want, man. Which is the same with me. I feel like it doesn't matter where I go, man. I'm going to get them, dude, man. So I can relate that to the fly as well, dude. Man. Yeah.
I like that, man. I like that. Marabou leech is a great fly. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great fly.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, amazing. Brendan, thank you, man, for coming on the show. It's been fun. I know we didn't even get to talk really about, you know, where you fly fish now and all that stuff, but we'll have to do that some other time, maybe in person. But it was fun to chat about tying and everything. Where can people find you if they want to find your tying stuff, or if, you know, here's a moment to kind of plug your stuff?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at the Dubbing Loop, right, on the Instagram, and I'm going to start a video series this year, right, hopefully in conjunction with Rio on tying basic trout patterns, man. So for beginning trout flies and stuff or, you know, even saltwater flies, anything along those lines, but nice and easy and keeping it simple. So I will have a page on YouTube as well, the Dubbing Loop, which I've already started. I haven't got the videos uploaded yet. I just want to get like 10 or 15 of them together first before I've actually done it. So it is in the works. So that's where you would be able to find me for sure.
Awesome. That's exciting. We'll put links to that stuff in the show notes too. And yeah, I mean, you're not just an Atlantic salmon tyer. Your flies you've got all kinds of flies on your page and they're all incredible. So everybody go check them out. And keep an eye out for the YouTube series. But man, thanks again for coming on. It was really cool to catch up and chat more about your fly life.
Cool, man. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. I appreciate it, you guys.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care.